Now, one of the reasons I was so high on Berlanga uh, going into this fight, I wasn't really high on him going the distance, but I was high on him looking a lot better than he has in the past, especially from what I seen last night. That's why sometimes I put predictions videos out early, but I have to come back and reevaluate some things before the fight. And one thing I've noticed is if we go back to, I'll give people a hint. If you go back to the Patrick McCrory, uh, the McCrory fight that happened recently, a couple months ago, McCrory has a similar style to what Canelo does. And I feel like Berlanga going into this fight, he could have changed some things up and did have had a similar game plan to what McCrory did against him that Canelo would have against him. And he can go into that using the game plan similar, but he was on the back foot a lot more. Um, I would say he was shell shocked early, but he was still professional. He was patient. He wasn't really waiting a long time, but he did a lot of things in that fight to where he showed people that he's definitely improving. The guy's only 27 years old. One thing in boxing right now is when a guy turns 27, a lot of people like to change expectations for these guys, but Berlanga getting the trainer is one of the most slept on things. I mean, the trainer he used to work with, going back to work with him, just like Munguia going back to work with Eric Morales recently. A lot of guys they work with different people, they learn great things. I'm pretty sure Berlanga learned a lot of amazing things when he was working with Andre Rozier. Rozier is an animal at training. It's just that it's different things for different people. Everything's not gonna work the same for everybody. I feel like just the way Berlanga's been going, he's a boxer, but he's been going away from that. He also said that recently. And for him, it was so serious. He said that he was thinking about retiring if he couldn't get that fight done with his new trainer. If his new trainer wasn't gonna step in, I mean his old trainer that he used to work with, if he couldn't come back and work with him, that he was thinking about walking away from boxing and retiring. It's that serious, man. A lot of people don't realize, but being comfortable, you have to learn new things. A lot of these guys want to learn. That's how they learn how to box. I know a lot of people will say, "Oh, they just don't want to. They're hard headed. They just want." A lot of these guys want to learn. They had to learn boxing from somebody. Even some of these guys' fathers who haven't boxed before, they had to learn from someone to be able to train their sons, their daughters, whoever it is boxing. They had to learn from somebody to learn how to learn all aspects of boxing. And that's the things that's going on now with higher expectations. It becomes a lot of pressure. Berlanga was getting a lot of knockouts, and people was expecting him to knock everybody out every fight, and it's just not what was going on. But even with the move Tiafimo did recently, I hope a lot more other fighters do this because Eddie Reynoso had a good fighter last night that looked very decent. He made some good adjustments in the fight. Didn't just rely on his power. Broke a guy down, a guy who was very game. He was an animal. But the trainer getting switched in and out is something that's very slept on at this moment. But it just shows how important it is when Berlanga says, "Man, I was thinking about retiring if this didn't happen. If I was able to work with this guy who I was working with in the past, being able to go back to boxing. I love knockouts, but I'm not getting any rounds in. It looks nice on paper, but in the ring, it feels so good to go to a distance because it feels like I'm accomplishing a lot more as a boxer, for your skill set, especially if you grew up watching Floyd and even Canelo. And all those Triple G fights, he went the distance, and people remember all those fights. They remember those fights more than the fights he got the knockout in. So it just goes to show you those are just as important. And Berlanga being able to adjust and do those things in the ring, it takes him at a higher level now. I feel like all these things he's doing, he's not afraid of anybody. He'll fight anybody. But all the things he's doing right now is preparing him for what's to come in the future. He's an integral part of that 168, 175, that era of guys that's starting to come together and fight at a high level, fight a lot more often, I know he left top rank. Um, I was very high on Berlanga, but I felt like once he ran into a couple of things, it just wasn't working right. And for him to change trainers right now was the best thing to happen to him. And now he's fighting at a high level. But this goes to show that boxing is definitely all about guys being comfortable and having the right trainer. It's just not about power and speed and knockouts. That guy was willing to almost walk away from boxing just because he wasn't comfortable with the training that he was getting, or he wanted to be in a different space. So that just goes to show, when I mention things like that about Teofimo Lopez and everybody else, it wasn't to talk bad about even Berlanga. It wasn't to talk bad about these guys. I just seen things that people really don't look all the way into. It's a lot deeper than just what you see in the ring. But that's all I got. Like and subscribe.